How do you measure the success of your employer brand efforts? Maybe you just notice more smiles on people's faces, so you feel like your work is justified. Or maybe you are on best places to work lists and feel awarded for your hard work. Well, we prefer the hard numbers. The Employer Brand Index helps you calculate the return on investment of your employer brand, and in turn, validates the work you are doing to your organization. Having a great employer brand means you have to offer a great candidate experience, employee experience, and even alumni experience. When you use insights from our Employer Brand Index, you can take action and move the needle. Want to know more? Just get in touch. Go to employerbrandindex.co.
Hey, sons, Vaison, it's Jürgen Sundberg here with the Employer Branding Podcast, brought to you by your friendly team here at Link Humans out of London. This is, of course, the show where we have an employer brand leader on to answer questions about their company, their talent landscape, what employer brand looks like in their organization, how it's deployed, and lots of tips and tricks along the way. With that, let's start the show. Anne and Maria, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Jürgen. Nice to be here.
Hi, Jürgen.
Pleasure to have you on. So please tell our listeners, who are you and what is it that you do?
So we both work at Sanofi as part of the global employer branding team. So my name is Anne Adam. I'm based in the UK and I look after our employee advocacy program and our media and channels.
And I'm Maria, and I work together with Anne, and I'm leading content and creative for employer brand at Sanofi.
Right. So Sanofi, some of our listeners may not have heard of Sanofi. Can you please give us an overview of the company and what it does?
Yeah, of course. So Sanofi is a global pharmaceutical company. We're headquartered in Paris, so France-based, but we recruit in dozens of countries around the world, and we've got an employee population of about 90,000. We may not have as much brand recognition outside of France as some of other pharma companies do, as we didn't have such high profiles vaccines during the pandemic. But we are very much leaders in innovative healthcare solutions. We have a big focus on immunology, neurology, oncology, things like that. And I will just add that in the last year or so, there's been a real shift to become an R&D-driven, AI-powered biopharma. And that mindset now transpires in everything we do.
Lovely. Right. Okay. And what is the talent challenge for the company?
That's interesting. So just a little bit of context here. 4 years ago, Sanofi embarked on a major transformation. So the company has grown throughout many acquisitions over the years, and that created a fragmented brand, right? And we were struggling to compete, as Anne actually mentioned. So when Paul Hudson, our CEO, came into office, he did a strategic move and did a unite and rebrand that was one single organization. And it was a massive transformation, so not only in processes and in technology, but it was a cultural shift. And of course, that didn't just impact our corporate brand, but also our employer brand, a little bit of attention, right? The reality was we were known among the audiences that we were looking to hire in the markets. Our competitors had a massive advantage due to COVID. And of course, if we're going to stay competitive and attract the talent that we're looking for, we need to really work in awareness. So our main challenge is awareness. We've been working on it for the past 2 years already.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So we have plenty of companies on this podcast who, especially in the B2B space, who are struggling similarly with awareness, which is, gives you a double challenge for employer brands. So so if we examine that Sanofi's employer brand, how come about, where are you now, and what's the latest?
So, we all started in 2023. So, once the whole groundwork was settled, our chief talent officer decided to make a significant investment on employer branding. She brought Dan Perkins, our global head of employer brand, and started this center of excellence. And as we said at the beginning, right, we are divided in different strategic areas. I'm leading content and creative. Anne is leading channels and data. And then we have one person dedicated to career site and CRM, and one person supports professional hires, another supports early careers. And we work in 2 different levels. We work to make sure that we generate global awareness, so we amplify our presence in the employment market, and we bring in the people that we're looking for. But we also support the regional leads. There is a regional structure in place, and their actual work is conversion. So they work pretty much on driving the candidates the last mile, right? That driving the candidates to particular jobs. So that's how we are structured today.
And employer brand reports to TA or marketing or HR?
So we report to TA and into the talent office. So that's why, Audrey is our chief talent officer, and we report into that particular area.
Yeah. Okay. And how big is the employer brand team?
Interesting question. So if you count the core team, it will be around 9 people. But if you count the regions and etc., it grows a little bit farther into like around 16, 17 people.
Okay. Great. And in terms of positioning, so EVP and your actual employer brand, where are you at? And what did it look like to candidates and employees?
So our EVP was created in 2021. And when we started in 2023, we realized that nobody had actually activated it ever. So it went to a drone. So we decided to take a step back and create our brand vision and our positioning. And to do so, we took a closer look to our employer branding index to understand how people actually see us internally and externally. But also we took input from the client insights reports and our EVP attributes. And then we created our positioning, the one that we're working today, based on 2 different attributes. One around progress your career, which is, of course, focus on development. And the other is discover and makes your experience. And it's interesting to mention that both workplace experience and career progression were consistent threats during 2023 when we started measuring our employer brand index, either because people weren't talking about it that much or because the comments weren't particularly positive. So we been working towards changing that, and we realized that internally we have some really solid foundations. And I'm happy and proud to say that after a lot of the work that we have been doing in the past 2 years, in Q3 this year, we managed to get both attributes to convert into opportunities, which for us is really big. So it would make us really proud as a team effort here.
Yeah, well done. Yeah, so just give you the context, the listeners here. So we're talking about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So looking at 16 different attributes and seeing how they fare at the top in terms of the employer brand. So well done to you and the team. So you had this employer brand that was in a drawer in 2021, or EP, and you sort of brought it to life in 22, 23?
24, I would say. It started in 24.
Okay, amazing. And in terms of activating it, where does it sit? I guess you have there's career side, there's social media, there's job boards. How do candidates see it? How do they consume it? And how does it help your recruiting efforts?
Yeah, well, great question. I think I'd like to say everywhere. So, but just taking a quick step back. So, yes, so for us activating our program externally, obviously, this is specifically in supporting talent acquisition. And the first step for us is start by understanding who our audience is. So, just talking you through this, and because this is really my favorite part, and we need to understand obviously who we're trying to attract. This is the kind of work that was not done before. Where are these people? And when I say where are they, geographically, yes, but also where are they spending their time and where can we reach them? And we went through a lot of steps. There was a ton of background work that went through this to identify and really refine our talent target audiences. So obviously we looked at historical hiring data. We worked closely with our regional employer brand teams, which Maria mentioned previously, and our talent acquisition teams to advise on anticipated recruitment needs, because there's only so much that the past can tell us compared to the future. Obviously, as I said, and if available, some workforce planning data as well. And then from there, we build out the target audiences we'd be focusing on for the following quarter. And I'll let Maria speak of the content part, of course, but in parallel with this information, we then start thinking about channels. And obviously, we're lucky to have some media budgets. I know not all employer brand professionals get that, or to the same extent. But obviously, that helped us to attract talent. And so that was done across a number of channels, obviously social media, programmatic display, search, programmatic jobs. But the one I really want to call out is that we've also built a huge force in earned media with our employee advocacy program. And I really want to call that out because It's now over 5,000 ambassadors who truly have become a force to be reckoned with and make such a huge impact. The program was actually built 2 years ago, just before I started, and now I'm leading it. But I can honestly say that our employer brand and our impact would not be anywhere near what it currently is without them. We could not influence our perception externally. It was just our Sanofi voice. When I say Sanofi voice as an official voice, when we go out on paid media, even organic, having those authentic voices of our employees is just huge. And what we do is we work with them, we empower them. For me, it's a win-win situation, right? They build their personal brands, their professional networks, they build their presence online, and they write those stories about what the experience is like working at Sanofi. And these voices combined are extremely powerful for employer brands.
Amazing. So 2 quick follow-up questions there. First of all, you talked about regional teams. And in my experience, there tends to be some regional teams that race ahead are more advanced in terms of employer brand. Where in the world would you call out who's doing the best for Sanofi's employer brand?
I mean, right now, I would say we've got a big focus on our hubs. Those are our capability centers. We're really building a workforce there, and we've got a huge focus. And I think our hubs have done amazingly to really build that presence, that brand awareness there, because those are places where we weren't necessarily present before. So that's been huge labor, love, blood, and tears, I probably should say. So definitely want to call out the hubs team for sure. But I'll have to say that every single regional employer brand lead we work with, they're dedicated, they care, and they work so well with us. And we work so well with them. I think we've really built the dream team. If I've done a bit cheesy, but it's true.
Okay, and my second follow-up question is very similar, actually. So out of these 5,000 employee advocates, what sort of roles or what sort of functions are performing the best and getting the most engagement?
That's a great question. We've not delved into that level of detail, but to be honest, I don't think we would see any difference because we have anywhere from interns to senior leaders in the program. We've got, PNC, vaccines, or when I say PNC, people and culture, vaccines, finance, R&D. We've got a bit of everyone. It's such a beautiful mix of people who are interested in building their presence and visibility online, and everyone has a go. And I think this is why also I think it makes such a beautiful sort of overall Sanofi voice, because it's such a reflection of our employee population as well. So I can't call out any single function or group or geography on this one.
Okay, so you've got 5,000 in the program. Is it open to anyone, or have you? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone who wants to join and has an interest can absolutely join. It's one single step. Obviously, we work in a highly regulated industry, so we make sure we put them through a bit of a training. We can't do anything that can jeopardize the company or make any claims, things like that. So we put them through a training, but then they're in and they have access to all the wonderful things we offer.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting parts of this community is that it's not a passive community, quite the opposite, right? We lean in this community to be part of all our content, all our campaigns, and etc. Once we finish that process that Anne was actually mentioning, and the channels and the audiences are clear, we pretty much created a plan and a strategy for content, and we start activating it. And this year, we focus, for instance, on everything regarding workplace experience with the Sanofi Feeling campaign. And not only because of our positioning, but also because we were about to implement a hybrid policy, right? And we wanted to change the conversation from being, okay, we need to go back to the office X amount of days a week, to the offices are amazing. And we really lean into our community. Basically, what we did was run a contest among all of them, and we invite them to share their experience and how they enjoy working at Sanofi, going to the office, etc. And we got 80 participants. And out of the 80 participants, we selected 20 people. And we went with them and we traveled around the world. Like we went to China, to the US, to France, Germany, India, to record their stories. And we created hero content with them, and people were so appreciative of it. And not only that, we even created a scent challenge, and we challenged all of them to identify our signature scent that we have at Sanofi in every single office in a contest. And everybody joined in, and we're really giving it everything, right? And sharing their experiences, and they were so appreciative of the initiative. So what I was saying is, with all of this is, I mean, this community is not a community that's only receiving our content, but also is part of every single thing that we do. And I think that's pretty much the difference. I've done some other ambassadors programs in the past, and I think the amazing work that Anne has done here is made this community really embedded and part of our employer brand. It's at the heart of everything we do.
Excellent. Well done. And I need to ask about the signature scent of Sanofi, which I've seen being posted on LinkedIn and videos and so on, but I've never actually smelt it. So can you describe the scent?
You put me on the spot here. So it's a calm scent to start with. It's citric, but it's essentially Sanofi. That's what we always said. So it's very particular. I don't think I have ever smelled something like that. Anne, what do you think?
No, I wouldn't even know how to describe it, but it feels, when I smell it, it does smell like Sanofi. It's hard to explain, but it's also a signature scent, right? You couldn't just buy anywhere. It's been specifically made for Sanofi offices. And it's quite nice because you can go from one office to another and it'll still smell the same, which is lovely. It's kind of going with the theme. But it's not, I would say it's not overpowering. It's not something that lingers in a bad way. It does smell like an office. You don't feel like, it's not like a person's perfume, but it's well done. And I think, a lot of people appreciated it. Every time we've done the Sanofi scent challenge, it's gone down a hoot. People love it.
Yeah. And everybody gets a little bottle of diffuser to take back home. And I have one, actually. So it's fresh, calming, I would say, citric. That's how I would describe it, to be fair. But yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely taking employer brand to the next level. And I see these hashtags on LinkedIn and other places, Sanofi stories and Sanofi feeling. How do you use these hashtags? And if our listeners click on them, what will they see?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Sanofi stories hashtag is the dedicated hashtag for our employee advocacy program. So you'll see every time you see this hashtag, it's one of our ambassadors sharing their story, their experience of working at Sanofi, which is wonderful because there's hundreds and hundreds of them now. The Sanofi Feeling hashtag was born out of the Sanofi Feeling campaign, completely related to obviously our workplace experience. But I can let Maria talk about why it's called the Sanofi Feeling briefly.
So basically, when we would start with all of this, it's really interesting, right? We created first the narrative around workplace experience, and we want to make sure that we weren't just talking about offices, right? And how nice the office actually looked like. And we did a lot of groundwork and understand, okay, what do want to be recognized when it comes to workplace experiences? It's not about what you see, it's about how it makes you feel. And we have 4 different pillars, and every single office and every single experience that we put out there is based on those pillars and backed by science and research. I don't know, for instance, in India, we have a huge investment on air quality because we know that's something that the India population really values. And there's a lot of people with asthma and a lot of people with respiratory diseases and it's really important for the office to have clean air. So there is a huge investment on it. And it's not something that you see, but it's something that you feel whenever you enter into the office. And I think that's kind of what we wanted to capture. So all our content and all of these bits and pieces, you can find it in our career site. And if you go to jobs.sanofi.com/Sanofi Feeling, you'll find all these stories. We have videos with people sharing all of these stories, and I think it's quite interesting. And the campaign was pretty much a success, I have to say. I'm really proud of it. But the interesting part is outside of all the impressions and etc., thanks to the work with our influencers and the paid media and etc., we managed to move the attributes, workplace experience, from being a threat to be a particular opportunity in just one quarter of activity in this campaign. And I think it's because of the commitment of everybody who participated on it.
Amazing. Well done. And I must ask as well about the Paris Olympics. Because I know that Sanofi was a sponsor of the Olympics. And how did that tie in with, the overall branding of Sanofi, but also the employer brand? Were you able to hijack that a bit?
A little bit, yes. So it is interesting, and it's an interesting case. When we all arrived in 2023, we realized that we were partners of the Olympics, and we didn't have any plans until February, and the Olympics were in the summer. So we decided to worked directly with our corporate communications team. The point is we couldn't actually talk about being a partner of the Sanofi Olympics because we were only partners in France. So what we decided to do is get inspired by the Olympics team and work on a campaign we call Ignite Your Potential, where we went back to our influencers community. We understood, and asked people to share their stories of those people who really inspires them to work and do the work that they do every day. And we created a campaign around it. And we created a campaign together with the influencers. And also, when we call influencers, we're talking about our ambassadors. We leverage our ambassadors because as part of the Olympic initiative, around 2,024 people came to Paris and was part either of being a volunteer or participated on the games or went to our office to watch a whole Sanofi, how do we call it? Oh, the exhibition. I forgot her names.
Trial bearers. There were some people participating in the Sanofi Cup. So we have athletes as well. There was many cohorts, many groups involved in all. This was a huge employee engagement activity.
So outside of the videos that we created for the campaign, we worked together with the corporate team to actually align and make sure that all of those stories were out there, because we as a brand couldn't talk about being part of the Olympics, but every Sanofian had the liberty to speak freely on their socials. So we leveraged the influencers, the ambassadors, influencers community that we have, and we made sure that everybody was sharing their stories. And actually, when we started measuring our employer branding index, that was a big game changer for us, because the Olympics drove the first part of our increasing our employer branding index. But then this year, we actually break our records with the Sanofi campaign. So yeah.
Great. Okay. Yeah. So you touched on it there, measuring results. How do you go about it? What sort of metrics do you look at, and how do you report them to management?
Yeah, I mean, again, lots. So our leaders have a question that keeps coming up and that everyone wants to answer to is, so what? We've got a compelling EVP, we've got a beautiful campaign, we've got employee stories, but so what? So measurement is absolutely key for us. We use many, many tools. So of course, there'll be careers website metrics, campaign results. Of course, we look at impressions. Obviously, impression is critical for us since brand awareness is a key activity for us. There's LinkedIn Talent Insights, Ipsos reports, obviously in conjunction with our corporate teams. But obviously, one of our key KPIs is the employer brand index, right? I think that's a very comprehensive way of looking at it. And that's been a KPI for us for the last couple of years, every single quarter. So we measure it, every quarter, as I said. It's really helped to inform so many of our decisions, both on a global but also regional levels. All of our regional teams also use the employer brand index on a regular basis. And obviously it helps, decide what campaigns we're going to go for. As Maria mentioned, workplace experience was a threat, now become an opportunity. So it definitely helped us, shift gear. But also it's helping us understand what we need to do, where we need to push with our ambassadors, right? What content we need to push with them, what topics we'll ask them to talk about. And it's been a really invaluable tool to help keep up those important conversations that we care about that make up our EVP, and that what's going on externally and how to amplify our brand in the right way and the right element.
Amazing. Glad to hear that. Well, that's a very useful application of the index there. Great. And so you have both worked in employer brand for a while now. So there are people listening to this podcast right now who might be breaking into employer brand, or they want to work in employer brand. What are some of your top tips to them? Top learnings.
Okay, yeah, I'll start. So first, and I think you've heard us say the word ambassadors probably 100 times in the last half hour already, but honestly, looking back now, working 10, 15 years now in employer brand, I think employee advocacy should be a must-have, like a baseline mandatory thing of any employer brand strategy moving forward. Like, we're in 2025. If you're not actually empowering employees and their voices, then you're only doing it halfway. You're never going to fulfill your employer brand externally amplified properly if you're not using your employee voices. So having, and when it's employee advocacy, like in a properly structured way. And we talked about Olympics, we're talking about, paid media, things like that. Not everyone necessarily has budget for these kind of things, but we all work for companies that have employee engagement activities, events, employee resource group. There's always something happening what people go behind and are ready to talk about. And I think you can do it on a smaller scale and still have an impact. But for me, yeah, employee advocacy is an absolute must have to any employee brand strategy nowadays.
Yeah, and for me, if I have to give it some tips here, the main one it will be like it's really easy to fall into creating content first without doing all the groundwork before. And the point is, if you don't do the groundwork before, your content is never going to work. So for me, one of my main tips is before thinking about content, think about your audiences. Think about who's going to see this content. Why is it relevant for them? Where are you putting this content? So therefore, when you get into the fun part, which don't get me wrong, I love it, your content actually makes the mark, hits the mark, and actually makes a difference and is something interesting and something that becomes a success.
Absolutely. And my third tip, I guess, more overall, and if anyone's ever listening has ever worked with me, you've heard me bang on about this for a while, but for me, it's all about the concept of the unified brand strategy. So I heard about this a few years ago on a LinkedIn webinar, and it's really resonated with me because your employer brand is only one dimension of your overall brand, right? And you really need to work in synchronicity, say, with all aspects of brand, the consumer brand, the corporate brand, all different dimensions, working with different stakeholders, right? And having that synchronicity, always working in partnership with the right teams to make sure that your overall brand is I hate saying the word, but synergized. But that makes sense and connected. Like it needs to be connected to make sense. I think that's such a critical piece of the puzzle. You can't work in silos.
Yeah, and we've been building up upon it, right? I mean, at Sanofi, when we started, we didn't even have a relationship with the corporate brand team. And so I think for us, it's been quite crucial to build that relationship. And now we're very working really close with them. A couple of weeks back, we have half of the team from brand coming to a workshop to understand, okay, what elements of our identity we're going to evolve, change. And I think that synergy is what's actually helping us moving forward a little bit faster and more cohesively. So we need to think our target audiences are not going to only see what we put out there, but they're also going to see the corporate content. They're going to see the ambassadors' content. They're going to see so much about Sanofi. And as much as we are aligned, it's easier to make the mark and to generate the reputation, the awareness that we're looking for.
Great. All right. Thank you for those tips. And my next question is really about what gets you up in the morning, what gets you out of bed and want to do employer branding for a living. What is it that makes your job so special?
Well, I mean, I've worked in this field for a long time now, and 10 plus years now, but I think it's just a lot of fun. There's so many aspects of our job, but I think we've become a bit the cool kids on the block. I think people realize the impact we make, but also that I mean, for us, really, we're a great team to work with. People enjoy working with us, but we touch upon so many parts of the business and what we do. We have to understand so many different things. Based on the talent function, we have to work with so many people as well. And I think people really enjoy what we do, enjoy working with us. And so I think it's very, like, the reciprocity is there as well. We love working with so many different people, different functions, different business units, different geographies as well. So I love that. And obviously we get to be part of all these amazing employee engagement activities. So I think there's a bit of everything, but mostly the people we work with, really.
I couldn't agree more. And also, for me, the job is super dynamic. I mean, you can do so many different things working on employer branding. I don't know, in my case, we have the experience to tell so many stories and to get into the insides of the business and to, I don't know, do really interesting stuff. We went to China and understand, okay, how the China culture actually works and how to create content for them. We got to meet Erin Mayer, and even last week, we were together with Dan in McLaren Training Center.
Wow.
Doing a shooting on yes, it was very cool doing a shoot on a learning initiative that we have where like our Sanofians learn how milliseconds, the same principles that save milliseconds on track actually can improve people's lives. Yeah, that's a line on the video. And I mean, for us, it was amazing. We will never have an opportunity like that otherwise. And I think it's just touching in so many places of the business, being sitting in this role, for me, is kind of a blessing. I feel so lucky to be able to work on what we do.
Amazing. Where can our listeners connect with yourselves, and where can they learn more about Sanofi's employer brand?
Yeah, so Maria and I on LinkedIn, you'll see us post regularly, and please connect with us. I will say, have a look at our careers website. There's so much amazing content. We tell so many amazing stories. So jobs@sanofi.com. But most of all, if you've not heard us say the word ambassador yet, honestly, just follow us Sanofians on LinkedIn, because, follow our hashtag Sanofi stories or Sanofi feeling, because those are the real stories. They're authentic voices. They will absolutely tell the real Sanofi story and what it's like to work here. So yeah, highly recommend to look after that.
All right. Thank you both so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks for having us.
Okay, folks, there we have it. Be sure to reach out to our guests with any questions or just to connect. You can find this episode and the entire back catalogue over at employerbrandingpodcast.com, along with articles summarizing what we have learned. And if you, just like many of my dear interviewees, are interested in measuring employer brand, be sure to check out the Employer Brand Index. Of course, providing unbiased employer brand insights driven by data. It's trusted by some of the greatest companies in the world, and you can find it at linkhumans.com. Or why not get in touch with me and I'll tell you all about it as well. That is it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in, and catch you next time. Hey,
What is blue and it's not too heavy?
No, I don't.
Light blue.